He joins. Welcome to the Stanley Street Social Podcast presented by the TAC. The road belongs to us all. My name's Clements. I'm here with Max Gawn and hopefully Campbell Flakemore some point throughout the podcast. He's either cut off via the internet because for some reason there's been a cable that's cut midway through Bass Strait, or he's on the back nine at Royal Hobart. I'm not sure. TBC. But his phone's off the hook. Welcome, Max.
Finally, our dreams have come true, and Tassie has just been cut off. It's been cut off completely. We can't even make contact with Van Diemen's Land.
They're yeah. Although I did make a second phone call to another friend before, and that went through. So I'm not sure what he's doing.
Okay, maybe, yeah, he's just wants to get a round of golf in.
Yeah, a big thanks to our podcast apparel partner, MAP, long-time supporter. They've just released a brand new range in collaboration with Arrivals, a New York outwear company. Cool kit. You can get that online now at map.cc. Max, have you just been taking it all in the last month? There's been a lot going on. You mentioned before, it felt like a COVID year when we first had our COVID season, and there was just racing galore. There's top tier racing, and then there's everything else on top of that going on.
Yeah, well, I don't think opening weekend is opening weekend anymore. I feel like there's a good month that leads into opening weekend, and then opening weekend happens. But my eyes were, and I'm sure every Australian, and I'm pretty sure Australian is literally the listeners that we have. I'd love to think that we have some global listeners, but I'm sure all of our eyes are on Plappy. Like that was pretty extraordinary. Like that's the highlight of the last 2 weeks, I think. Mm-hmm. Caleb could have stolen it from him if he managed to get over the line from Jakobsen, but Plappy mixing it with Pog. Like who would have thought?
Yeah. You say that was a highlight of the last 2 weeks. I believe for you there was a highlight before that, like 2 days after we recorded the summer recap with Keno. Moschetti got a win. It was man. You've been on him since the Giro 3 years ago when Campbell and I just looked at each other when you mentioned that he was the guy for the bunch kicks, and he delivered in a big way.
Unfortunately, the company that I bet with, I won't promote them. They don't do local Italian races, so I couldn't get on Moschetti. But look, I've gone to a new. I've actually gone off Moschetti just a little bit, just because of his sheer lack of success in any level in getting inside a top 50. I'm now on another fellow who gets top 10s regularly and could do something tonight in Lausanne. Is Pasqualen.
Yeah, okay. I believe he's popped up before.
Yeah, so I reckon I might have talked about him before.
Yeah.
He might have been when I did a random top 15 sprinters list.
Yeah, okay. But he beat like Viviani, Christoph, Jakobsen now, which
he's in form.
He's in good nick.
Well, it's my other boy, Cohen DeCourt, is now part of the technical team at Trek Segafredo, and that could be maybe they've just sharpened up his bike, and he's just got some better tools of the trade.
You have to get some mayo out of Kung this year. Yeah. Now that he's behind the wheel. And the other thing I was going to mention for Cambo, big signing for Dominique Poxavivo, re-signed with Intermarché Wanty in February the year after his team folded. So he's not here, but I'm sure he will be extremely excited if he...
I've been seeing some quotes around Poxavivo saying that he's in the best form he's ever been in as well. So I'm excited to see finally he's on a good team.
And he must be close to 40 now. So
he's got a team that actually performs at the tour. Didn't Intermarché win like three stages?
I think it was Giro last year they bounced on. Giro. But look at their work at the UAE tour. They were good. Yeah. So I think, there's big upside for him. UAE tour, sprinters. I don't know if it's sprinters heaven, but from a viewership perspective, it is good to watch these like wild bunch kicks, massive roads, good tarmac. Most of the sprint teams there, let's say 80% of the sprinters were there, and just full 8-man trains just going wild down each side of the road. It's some good sprinting.
That was, I must say that was a pretty crazy field that UAE managed to get. I'd say apart from Merlier and Caleb Ewan, and obviously Jakobsen, who's in some serious form, everyone else was there. Like, it was a pretty crazy field. And Jasper Philipsen, who we probably wouldn't have put in if we did a top sort of 6 or 7 sprinters. I reckon Jasper Philipsen would have been sitting around 7th. He was probably the clear winner. Although Cav, you can still see if Cav can turn it on, he can turn it on.
That team, like the culture must be just unreal at that squad. Like their way that they've been able to have Van der Poel there, and then have Van der Poel there, and then build off that to have Jakobsen, not Jakobsen, had Philipsen absolutely flying, because it still doesn't seem like he's the quickest bloke there.
No.
You're not like, oh, wow, that guy's like bursting out of the bunch. You put him on any train and he'd be winning.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's good signs there. Picked up 2 stages. That's huge.
2 stages in that sort of field.
Yeah.
And with a quick step train there. It was, I mean, I was a little bit like Demar, like he had his full FDJ train there. I get it was his first race of the year. But he was slightly disappointing again. I'm not sure where FDJ go. Viviani's gone to Ineos and has the best lead-out man in the world in Philip Garner and can't do anything with him. So I'm not sure what's happening with the other sprinters, but Philipsen has just found his rhythm, and him and Cav are the only 2 that managed to get stage wins. Is that right?
It's a real, him and Cav. We'll get to Cav in a sec, but I guess I find the UA Tour is a real, like, a kind of, it's a test for the lead-out trains. They've all got all their men. They've got no excuses that they're on tiny French roads and they got boxed out. It's a pure, just head-to-head. We saw, I think there was one stage where Bike Exchange had like 8 men lined up, ready to go, just ready to launch, and Kell O'Brien was just flying down the outside. Turned into nothing. But it's a real test of like how those teams come together. And I think a disappointing UAE Tour for Bennett at his new squad, Bora, and Arnaud Demar, who had good opportunities to win.
You'd probably have to put Bike Exchange in there as well. I feel like Groenewegen is in good form. So those 3, although Groenewegen and Bennett had times where they sprinted, like Bora were just chilling at the back of the peloton some stages. Like they seemed not interested. Like it's gone from Quickstep, who's like the best lead-out team in the world, and now all of a sudden he's right at the back with Bora. Like he's starting to feel what Pascal Ackermann was feeling, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, because also after our last podcast, another thing that happened, Groenewegen won 2 stages of the Saudi Tour.
Yeah.
And so that's huge for him. Like all we've talked about since his crash with Jakobsen is that, like, he's got the goods. It's just how does he get mentally back into that same space and getting some wins on the board. There can't be anything better for his confidence.
It must be hard of a team that hasn't done a lead out since Caleb,
yeah. But they've got good horsepower there. They're the team, they're former team time trialist specialists. Like, they've got real good horsepower.
And haven't they sent an underwhelming team to opening weekend over in Belgium? They got Durbo, who's going.
Just Durbo. Hey, Durbo, just sort it out. Thank you. And they're in amongst that relegation conversation that's going around. Not sure that it means anything, but down the bottom stack of the UCI points after some disappointing couple of years. But Cav, you sent me a message after the win. It was like 2010.
It was classic Cav.
It was so good.
He actually made his rivals look like they're not capable, if that makes sense.
We were watching Cav at the Tour last year win, which was, I'm not taking anything away from it, but he was getting delivered perfectly.
Well, what was the Tour? The Tour was Merlier.
No, it was him v. Jakobsen, him v. Philipsen.
That's right.
And
Merlier was there as well, but he left after stage 3 or something.
Yeah. So, and he had the best lead out in the world. He was dropped up perfectly each time. He won the stages and he was unreal. But the stage that he won, stage 2 of UAE Tour, that was like, He'd lost the wheel. He was getting chopped. He was boxed in. He was in trouble, and it was just so cool, calm, collected. You know what? Bang, out the side, stage win, and he was against the top tier of sprinting.
Do they? They have to. They have to take both of them to the tour. I'd say take both. Take Jakobsen, because Jakobsen's in the form of his career as well.
Yeah.
And
How though?
Well, GC, they don't have Almeida anymore. So Alaphilippe, it's literally like a stage team. Unless Alaphilippe decides to go for yellow again, I don't think they've got a yellow contender. So you can almost take both.
Mm. And you use what, Cav, for more like the pure sprint stage?
Yeah, and then you almost do a Jakobsen and green jersey top setup.
Yeah.
It's probably, everyone's probably at home thinking that's the stupidest thing ever, but mind you, take out Cav because he's probably not highly paid, but Jakobsen's probably quite highly paid. But Cav's going to get him 2 to 3 stage wins.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
Yeah. What do you do?
At the moment, Cav's not in, is he?
No.
Jakobsen's
guy. But yeah, it's an ongoing conversation. There's been no hard and fast statement about it.
No.
But can you understand? You're big on this ageism thing that where you just write people off, and it's getting rife in cycling. Like you're 22 now and you're turning pro. Like, what are you showing me? Can you understand how he's flipped the switch? I think it was at Bahrain, or was he at Assos, and he was done. He was crying at the end of interviews. It was done. It was all over. Years of drought. Like, can you see how he's turned it round?
It's incredible mental strength because, like, I've just achieved a goal that I've been trying to do for years. For 13 years playing AFL, 20 years of my football career, I've been trying to achieve this goal, and then I've just achieved it. Like, you then have to reset a goal, which makes no sense that you're now in the middle of your career and you've got a new goal. So if you take that to Cav, who has done everything in cycling and then looked to be starting to come on the decline. So if I'd won my flag and I was 34, 35, I'm probably content. Like, I'm struggling to get another goal or and I can see myself declining. Cav could see himself declining, has been at the pinnacle, and has somehow got some sort of mental strength to come back from it. He must love the sport. Like, he has to love the sport. If he didn't love the sport, he would have been gone at 30 when he looked like he was gone. And 2, he must have the most incredible mental strength to train, because that would be the hardest part.
Like, could you see, if say the Ds, this is not going to happen, obviously we're just going to roll into another flag, but say the Ds have 3 shocking years. Like, can you see yourself being able to find the motivation to rally a team again?
Well, the difference there is Cav wasn't part of a shocking team. He was underperforming himself.
Yeah.
So if I started underperforming incredible amounts with a poor team, the writing's on the wall. Like, that would be hard for someone in my age, purely because of ageism, of how you're told you're supposed to feel. I'd love to be able to be the guy who changes it. Like, Sandland's tried to change it. He went to 36, 37. Dustin Fletcher's tried to change it. I'd love to be the guy who changes it. But in the end, I've got a young ruck who's 20, who ideally, when he's 25 and I'm 35, they're going to be playing him. So you can see riding on the wall at some point.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Cav just keeps defining it because he's got younger riders in his team, and he just says, "No, you have to pick me," because he keeps winning.
Yeah. And Patrick's got a real tricky decision ahead of him.
Well, they've got a third sprinter as well, don't they? The Hodge.
Hodge, and they've got Ballerini.
Yeah, so they've got to juggle that.
Yeah. And Cav's kind of, I guess, the only one that fits that pure play sprinting type.
Yeah.
Or what we used to know sprinting like.
I think ideally they'd take Cav where Caleb and the Alperson boys don't go.
Yeah.
I think that's ideally, which will be either the Giro or the Volta, I'm presuming.
And that's the big test. Can, like, from what you've seen from Caleb and earlier, assuming they're kind of the fastest 2 guys, can Cav beat them? Can Cav out sprint them?
Well, I mean, Caleb wins one. So Tour, Cav wins 4, 5, whatever it was, crazy. Caleb wins 2 of them, and Merlier, if he stayed on, wins another one, and Cav only wins 2. Where if he goes to the Volta and he's got Grunewagen and Viviani and my boy Mochetti and Pasquale, he's probably winning 5. So you're probably better off getting Jakobsen, who's got a $1.5 million contract, to go grit it out against those boys at the Tour.
Yeah. The other person that's been good at sprinting at UAE is Philipsen, who just sprints uphill. Like he's just your perfect. If he wins the UAE Tour for Team UAE and wins the Tour de France, he's your perfect rider for that squad. It doesn't get any better for that team.
They've nailed their team. The Almeida and Rafa Marca helping out Pog in the mountains. I know there was only 2 stages of the UAE Tour that Pog needed a bit of support, but they've got Almeida and Rafa Marca in hot form. They could have trifected the UAE Tour if they really tried. Yatesy was riding well, but then just to have a fella just winning sprints by himself, crazy.
Yeah, it's so good. And we've talked about this fair bit on the pod, like how good it is having form. People were like, oh, you don't want to peak too early, but being able to go at so early in the year is beneficial. But there is always the question of, is it too early?
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, in cycling terms, they can dip for the month of May, can't they? If you're hot in February, March, you can have your dip and still be good come the other Grand Tour races or the other one-day classics.
Yeah. Mate, you're not packing it up completely, but you're
pretty sure Caleb has won Volta races while almost missing Milan San Remo, like being hot in that race.
I guess the difference is with the sprinters are not as scientific, not as analytical.
Yeah.
Whereas those GC guys are dialed to a T. But the Pog just brings...
sprinters see the dollars and they go, yeah, I reckon I'll be fit enough for that.
Yeah. Yeah. What else have I got here from UAE? Demar, Bennett, Grunewagen missing out. Harper and Damo solid from an Australian perspective in climbing support.
Damo was real solid. Again, I think we talked about him last pod about how he seems to be the most consistent climber. But he did it again. I think the first day of climbing, he managed to finish with the group, maybe in the top 15.
Yeah, I think there was one stage, where he bagged top 10. I think, it'd be interesting to see if he stays at that squad. Like if he's happy with Yates or whether he wants to go to a bigger team, because that doesn't seem like he's ever going to win Grand Tours.
Yeah,
I think Damo would be okay with us saying that. But in terms of like the last 2 or 3 men supporting a Rog, a Pog, he'd be a pretty good guy for that role, which I think Chris Harper's really starting to settle into at Team Jumbo. The other right-hand man, I guess, that really stood out over the weekend at Umloop was Tej Benut at Jumbo.
Well, speaking of hot form and have they come in too hot, that's like, he hasn't ridden like that for 6 years.
Yeah. The good thing for him is that he is coming off a lighter cyclocross season, is what I've read.
Yeah.
Without following it to a T, I've read that he's come off a lighter season, whereas normally he'd go full noise all winter against Van der Poel. So I think a lot of that. But he was the strongest guy there by a million miles.
Well, when you know you can beat all of your rivals in a bunch sprint, but you just decide to attack with 20K to go and hold them off at a 45-second margin for 20K.
And you are the guy that everyone follows.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't a young rider coming through that slipped off the front. He must have gone when no one else could go.
I do think one could have stuck with him. I feel like Colbrelli had legs and just mistimed it a little bit. But apart from that, the others, like Pidcock has probably come in, like you said, maybe went a bit too hard in the cyclocross. And he looks a bit cooked, Pidcock. He looked cooked again in the day after. Ineos rolling out their team back to back.
Yeah. When we say cooked, this is like a 22-year-old or something being in the final 15 riders at Umlaut. But for what he was.
What we thought Pidcock was going to give us.
Yeah, and also like we talked about last pod, Pidcock is the guy for Ineos now.
Yeah.
I guess it's a worrying year for Ineos in a way. They've got Viviani running top 10s at sprints. They've got Gawn not winning TTs. They've got Luke Platt that's bounced onto the scene. Pidcock,
They've got Gawn climbing with Pogacar though.
Yeah. and their other time trialist, Luke Platt, being there.
Did you see Garner's tweet saying weight is just a number?
Can you imagine the data that he was doing up that climb?
I think I saw it somewhere. It was incredible. It was like 400s the whole way up.
Yeah. Yeah. But we also they have got him and Plappy. Luke Platt, like you talked about, exceptional up that climb. Disappointed that I've heard that he crashed out in the warm-up of the time trial. So he rode the time trial on his TT bike. But still ended up 10th on GC overall or something around that mark.
I did think it was a disappointing TT.
Yeah, because he was on a road bike.
Yeah, right.
Wood Van Aert, 15 on K to go, motoring off the front. He almost looked like, do you reckon it was like he never looks like he's suffering. And he looked like he was putting in effort. Do you reckon his PR person or something say, just like, Wood, just like, when you go, just give us a little grimace, give us a little, it's getting a bit tough out here as he just steamrolls his way to the finish.
And like the whole thing about not waiting for a bunch sprint, like he's got Trenton, Colbrelli, maybe Fred Wright. I'm trying to think of the sprinters that were in that group. Maybe those three. Like he's got them beat 100%.
And he's got teammates.
They were all there.
I think we talk about holistic teams achieving their goals. UAE with the POG, like that squad with Rog at the other side too for the Tour de France. Like their Spring Classics campaign is going to be huge.
And Van Aert said he wanted to win green, didn't he? Imagine winning green and yellow. Geez, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Both teams can do it. Philipsen can do it as well.
Colonel Bruss Kerner the next night. So it was a good weekend of
basically the same field, but Van Aert. He's just gone, I'll just do the one.
Yeah. And sub Van Aert out, Caleb in.
Caleb and Jakobsen in. Oh, Jakobsen was a both, wasn't he?
I think so.
You might have
not sure.
The first one.
Not sure. But Lotto were good. I guess that's what I've liked about Lotto this year. They were good. They were committed. They got the bunch kick they wanted, but Caleb just got lost.
Yeah.
In that final, there was a overview, a chopper shot of about 500 to go. He's hardly even in the picture,
which was weird because he was sitting in the top 10 majority of that final sort of 30K. Yeah. And I kept looking when they were attacking up like some of those little climbs. I was going, oh, geez, another attack that could put Caleb in the red zone. But then he was sitting in the front 6 or 7. I'm like, okay, he's still comfortable. Some of the other sprint trains were the teams that were missing. And then with the last K, he got lost.
But still managed second.
So imagine.
We're talking about this before. He got to the wheel.
Toes than Jakobsen. Is he?
Sorry, what's that?
Who's the better sprinter? Can we leave saying Fabio is in better form than Caleb, or?
Well,
I think Caleb.
I'm not going to say that. He's Caleb's faster.
Yeah.
Jakobsen was delivered better. I guess from a quick step point of view too, Umloop, they were always on the back foot. It wasn't a quick step performance where you see these guys kind of like just hedging their bets, like always a 1-to-2 ratio of quick step to other teams in the breakaway.
Yeah.
They were always on the back foot. Colonel Brussels Kerner, they were on the front foot, but they also backed Jakobsen in pretty hard with Caleb Ewan in the bunch.
Well, and I think we got to start from the start of Kearney. Like that's one of the best last 3 kilometers I've watched in a cycling race for a long time. I didn't know Navarro's had that in him for one. I knew Taco did. Everyone knows Taco has that. And what's Laporte? Like Laporte has been the most mediocre confidence rider ever and goes to Jumbo and bang, he's all of a sudden this beast.
I completely forgot about the breakaway. They caught up with 40 meters, 30 meters to go.
Well, I still thought Laporte and Taco were going to hold on with not long to go. Navarro's dropped off.
Yeah.
Taco's strong. He come out of nowhere and won a tour stage last year, but he's going to win another one.
that's where Intermarché Wanty is like, it's a team now. You feel
Yeah.
like they've got enough going on. Like they've got Hurt and Tarame going at UAE. They're present in the classics. I think they've got a good year ahead of them.
Well, I mean, we talked about the relegation thing again. So if you go Intermarché, Alpecin Phoenix, and then also Arkea Samsic, who are like flying at the moment with top 10 finishes, there's some teams going well.
Well, I think if you look at the Kern Brussels Kerner results, they were 3rd and 4th.
And 7th.
And then Nairo's over winning races in France as well. Yeah. So they're racking some points.
Maybe they can drop Warren Barguil now.
Yeah.
Hasn't he? We don't need to go on Warren Barguil. He's not topical at all. He was a polka dot champion in 2016. We haven't seen him since.
But yeah, I still think Caleb's the fastest, but a Jakobsen's lead out, you know what you're going to get. It's always a clutch performance from Quick Step. So full credit to that squad for, they created that win. They got that win.
Yeah.
It did. The last thing I've got on my list to go through. Have you seen Lopez is already in a little bit of strife with Astana and getting along with his teammates?
Oh, I haven't seen this one.
There was
I must say, Astana doesn't come in my Twitter feed much. Maybe I don't like it as much.
There's a very good video from the Lanterne Rouge who just shreds this tactical move. But pretty much they're in a breakaway. Lopez is the guy, and Lysenko goes up the road with poles. Lysenko attacks and then rides with poles and rides Lopez out of the GC. And rides poles from Bahrain into the GC and puts him in the yellow jersey, takes the win. And Lopez is just flapping behind.
Okay, so that's not great.
The relationship is already a little bit tender.
And don't get me wrong, but are they a Russian brand as well?
They're Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan. Okay, sorry, they're a little bit south of Russia.
We had there's a Rus Velo. No, it's not called Rus Velo. They're the junior team, Gazprom.
Yeah.
I think there's been a little bit of discussion about what happens with Gazprom. Obviously, they're not the biggest. They're probably not number one on Putin's list in terms of having an effect on his decisions. But there's been a little bit of chat around the UCI and what they do with that squad, because they also won a stage. I don't know where it was, but they did win a stage a couple of days after.
I did see Sivakov did a tweet, and it was well said.
Yeah.
I'm sure if Zacharin's out there somewhere, he's probably said something as well.
Yeah.
And do we touch on the Valverde form?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I remember I was at some point during, I think it was Kernay or Umloop, they were talking about, is Garcia Cortina, was he the rider that was there?
Yeah, Spanish movie star rider.
They haven't sent their best team, obviously, to this race because they've got other priorities with a massive race back in wherever it was, in Spain.
Yeah.
I'm like, surely that's not your priority. Winning a Conti level stage race with Valverde, who's 47, compared to trying to give something to Garcia Cortina in like where everyone's watching in Belgium.
Well, maybe they're just hedging their bets of like, you know what, we've got a Spanish sponsor. Let's just keep the telco happy, and then we'll take that win and use that throughout the year. It'll be straight into the pitch deck for 2022 sales or the sponsorship renewal.
Yeah,
but He's still there. He's still winning.
He's still winning. It's still going to be an interesting decision whenever their decision comes about Tour. I know he said he's not going, but if he's winning form, he's going.
He's going. And it's his last year. Speaking of form, how's your form?
Look, not too bad. We played North. There's this whole concept, perception out there from your members and your general supporter that it's just a practice game. Don't worry about it. They're not even playing their best players, like something like that. Like that's common chat. Like even when I talk to my mates, they're like, "Oh, you're not playing in the North game, are you?" Surely they give you that off. That could not be like further from the truth. Like there's two reasons why. One is we have like 10 players that are ready to go that can't get in the team. Like including like the guys who missed out on the granny. Let's run like Tomlinson, Hunt, Wiedemann, Melksham. Like there's names that want to get into this team. And then, so if you take the gas off at a training session, let alone a practice game against North, you're almost dropped. And then secondly, is a winning culture is that hard to build that you're going to toy with it in a practice game? Like, no, you're going hell for leather at every opportunity you get, whether that be a Friday training session in December or an intra-club or a game against North at Casey Field. So we were giving it our all. North were most likely giving it their all. They'd lost a couple of midfielders just before the bounce. I think a few of them had gastro. But come Carlton, we're giving 100%. Goody might make some selection stuff that might mean we're a little bit less of strength, but the team that gets out there, we're going 100%.
Is that that drive to make the squad grown since you won the flag?
Yeah, there was. So it was 22. We picked 25 for the North game, but 3 sat on the bench the whole time unless there was an injury. And then I think Stephen May and Michael Hibbard got rested late in the last quarter, so Wiedemann and Hunt came on. But when Hunty found out he wasn't in the 22, like you could tell that he was quite like he wanted to be in the 22. Like everyone wants to be in the 22. There's a massive drive there. There's some good players coming back over the next few weeks from little tiny niggles, and currently like Tomlinson and Joel Smith are in the team.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an almighty squeeze. I don't even know who the team is for Carlton. I'm presuming it's going to be a tight little squeeze again.
You're also, your coach was in the media for drinking with his athletes or associating with his athletes. What do you think about the relationship between, now you're a leader, like the relationship with the leader of the squad and the management, and how that works, and how do you get the best out of it?
It's an interesting question. Obviously, every workplace is different, especially in professional sport. I feel like that is a lot different to your business world. Like you're my boss on the Stanley Street podcast, and I'd happily have a beer with you.
Maybe I've been doing too much drinking with Cambo because I'm his boss and he can't even show up for the podcast.
But I feel like being able to drop your guard, and doesn't necessarily have to be a beer. It was a beer, but it could be a coffee. It could be the most casual setting. Go for a surf together, like doing something casual and dropping your guard. One, it gets Goody, it allows Goody to know how to talk to you as a person, but it also, from a captain point of view, I can share with him some of the players' point of view. So, for example, setting up 2021, Goody had this almighty plan to set up with this PowerPoint that we won't go into what he wanted to say. And then I sort of said, I think that won't resonate amazingly with the players. And then we sort of talk a little bit more. I give my point of view, he gives my point of view. And then we nail on this PowerPoint slide that was one of the best things I've ever seen. And I'm not claiming anything of that. Goody did it. But I just told him like 1 or 2 things that maybe will resonate with players. And funny enough, that was in Rye over a beer. So like, did that set up something? Is there an issue if I'm leaving Sorrento pub at 4 a.m. with Goody with a dart in my mouth? Maybe. But at like 4 p.m., I think we were at the pub and I was only there from 4 till 6. I can do some good work in happy hour, but I was only there for 2 hours. Like, I think that's okay.
Is that the best relationship you've had with a coach or a manager?
Yeah, I've had him for a while, to be fair. He's my 6 years senior coach, 2 years as assistant coach, so around 8 years. And when he first started, he was quite young. So a younger coach can get to know the players a lot easier. So he's got some stuff in his advantage, but yeah, he's able to let footy go quicker and talk about other stuff more than any other coach I've had.
Yeah. And then is that important for all the other players too, or is it more that you've got the read on the other players and that's kind of part of your role to relay that information?
A bit of both. I like to think we have a real strong leadership group of myself and Jack Viney, but then if you add that, I could name about 15 names that would be technically leaders.
Yeah.
So I feel like all of them would have that relationship with Goody. Younger players, obviously, we're used for younger players to be able to connect with coaches and management at time. But the balance that we have now, and I mean, it does help winning the flag because we've just spent a week together in Perth after winning the grand final, getting to know each other more than anyone could ever expect. So now you come back now, and now it is close. Like the first year players have an amazing relationship with the football management's receptionist, just because we've had like the most amazing week in Perth. So this club, by default, because we were able to go away in a hub, has come back really strong.
Yeah. If you were designing, if you're going out for team bike exchange, I'm just plucking a team for all sakes. What would you do to build the strongest team culture? Like what are the musts?
Well, it's creating the best environment for everyone to flourish. So not knowing what the best environment is for them, and the best environment for us changes every single day. But being able to create, because you need Groenewegen being the best Groenewegen he can be. Otherwise, he's not going to perform on the bike. So you need him to be comfortable to be himself. So it's all about that. It's all about breaking down barriers so everyone's comfortable being themselves. I've been at a place at a football club where we broke down barriers to a point where we thought telling our life story 7 times, going into the real nitty gritties, was important. Yes, it's important for me to be a best friend and maybe be able to reach on that level. But to be able to perform, it probably isn't. Like, to be able to perform, you just need to know each other to a level where you can hold each other accountable on a performance point of view. So yeah, I'd focus on the environment. I'd focus on making sure everyone's happy, everyone's being themselves, because that's when you can get the best performances from athletes.
One more question on that is, so like, then you've got that, but then you've also got that competitive environment that you talked about of people in the reserves. How do you manage that without creating conflicts and too much competition?
That's the hardest balance in professional sport, I think. We've missed it when we've missed finals. I look back and reflect, and we lose all our VFL boys by round 15. Like, it's being able to keep that hunger for or that carrot for a person that's not playing for as long as possible, and making them feel like they're part of it and they're one, and they're also learning and becoming the better version of themselves as well. So it's not neglecting. I mean, cycling would be incredibly hard. You take a team of 9 to France, and the guys that miss are chilling in Andorra in their B&B or something. Like, it would be incredibly hard. Where we go to Perth for a final series and the whole 45 come and they're a part of it. But yeah, that has been the most challenging part of my career, is trying to keep 45 players fit, healthy, and mentally ready to go at any time on a list for the whole season. That is tough.
Especially when you've got, in a cycling perspective, you've got 3 different races on at the same time.
Yeah.
And then you change the team next week, and then you change the team the next week after that.
And there's similar things. You can get dropped as a role player in our team. So let's say we lose by 40 and Charlie Spargo doesn't play his role, but if he was in the midfield, he could potentially have done what Track did, but he was playing a different role and he struggled to do it. And he gets dropped. That's similar to Howe's Damo getting dropped from the tour, even though his domestique work is better than someone else's, but he wasn't asked to do that role. So a lot of the role playing comes into it. You got to find a balance, and luckily we found it at a good time last year. But if we stick with the environment we had late 2021, that environment will get away from us, and 2022 will be completely different.
Yeah. Thanks, Max.
No worries.
You got a big month ahead. Doesn't stop here. We're into the guts.
Well, Lassam tonight. Don't know how to say that properly.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to go with the Archaeus Hamzik boys. I feel like Hofstetter or what is the other fella's name? Capiot.
You've done your research.
I've done my research on those 2.
Yeah. Okay.
And Pasquale for, of course, a top 10.
So the eager listeners that, well, we're recording this at 5:20 on the 1st. They're gonna have to listen
tonight,
to that.
so they probably aren't going to get it. Is my gut.
Yeah. Although I'm going to get this up ASAP just so that real keen listeners get a little insight. The
race doesn't start till about midnight tonight. I'm pretty sure it's late, and I'm going Archaeus Hamzik. Just pick someone in there 7. I've picked 2 that I think are going to be competitive.
Yeah. Okay. A big thank you to the TAC for supporting this podcast and pushing that important message that the road does belong to us all. And as cyclists, we play a pretty important role in that. in that objective. And Matt, big thanks to Matt. Their new Arrivals collab is live on the website. You'll be lucky to get what's left, but there is some left on their website, map.cc. Thanks, Max. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks,
Cambo. I hope you had a good 18 holes at Royal Hobart, and hopefully one day we'll get him back on the podcast.
Beautiful. See you in about, what are we talking, a couple of weeks?
Couple of weeks.
Beautiful.
Thanks, Max.
All right.